Hope everyone is chill. Hope everyone can hear me. We're in for a great one tonight. Another great after hours podcast. So, super blessed, super excited to be here. Glad to be here. As always, joining me, brother Knight Lucas, aka Dan, aka the Lore Master. And then we'll have bro Evan Elliott joining us shortly. Shout out Richard Reeves. Shout out, shout out. What's up, buddy? What's up? How y'all doing? What's up? What's up? Good to have
Can't tell you
everybody.
how I can't. I don't know why, man. I gotta tell you thanks. Just being called the lore master for some reason just puts a smile to my face.
Hey man, hey man, you are the lore master. That's what it is. You got to keep it real. You got to
Yeah.
keep it a buck. You got to keep it a buck. Got to keep it a buck, man. Reeves shouts outs to Dan. Shout out Richard Reeves. Shout out, bro. Yeah, man, we are in for a good one tonight. I want to start this episode by saying just how phenomenal House of the Dragons is. I mean, phenomenal from top to bottom, just phenomenal, and really just what the culture needed in terms of entertainment, just what we needed in terms of those shows that we call events, those stories that bring everyone together around the fireplace, so to speak. So, shout out to the cast and crew uh, and everyone who's worked on House of Dragons, House of the Dragon. Just absolutely beautiful, beautiful show. And last night's episode was no different. So, got our first big dragon battle. This war is really starting to take on a life of its own, and the nuclear weapons have been unleashed. I mean, just looking all over the internet, vague R's, and people hate Aemon with a passion. R.I.P. to Rhaenys, the Princess Rhaenys. R.I.P. to her. Um, and yeah, man, very, very casualty heavy beginning episode for this war. So shout out to House of the Dragons, man. Absolutely epic episode, beautiful episode. And I think to me, man, just right when you think things can't get any better, they get better. They get better. So I'm excited about House of the Dragons and where that show is getting ready to take everyone. And I'll be faithfully tuning in every Sunday night. It's been a quite a ride, and no matter what side you're on, everyone's gonna get rocked. So that's the guarantee. Everyone's getting rocked. It's gonna happen. So it's gonna be like that. But we're prepared over here. We're prepared. We're prepared for it all, and we will be there for the bloody times, the good times, and the bad. So that's House of Dragons for you. Um, Tonight, also on the agenda, man, I wanted to sort of just reflect because I went to go see A Quiet Place with day one with my wife, and I'm not gonna lie, I miss Star Wars being in theaters. I can't lie. Like, I miss having a Star Wars movie in theaters. Like, I know we just came off of a, not really in that sort of context because it seems like ages ago, like The Force Awakens is celebrating 10 years. Um, The Last Jedi is going on its anniversary soon. It's just, I miss Star Wars being in theaters. I know next year we do have Revenge of the Sith and TFA celebrating their anniversaries. So fingers crossed, fingers crossed. I get to see Revenge of the Sith in theaters again, and I wouldn't mind going to see TFA in theaters again either. I wouldn't mind that. I'd like that. I wouldn't be too mad about that. But those are very controversial subjects, especially the sequel trilogy. So that's how it is. But before we get into that with House of Dragons, uh, again, I just want to reiterate, it's the best show out right now. I haven't gotten to the books yet. I do plan on it, but I still haven't finished Dune. For Christ's sakes, I still haven't finished Dune. I have to finish Dune, uh, and then once I finish Dune, I'll probably make my way over to the Game of Thrones books, or maybe Lord of the Rings. I might even go Tolkien. But first, I got to finish what's on my plate because now, and I can. I'm tempted because I know the Dune hype has kind of settled down now since part two, and we're waiting on Dune Messiah to be done. So I know the hype has died down, but I'm trying to keep it consistent. So I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna finish those books, and it's gonna be a good time. But with House of Dragons, I've never seen, and this is one of the things that we talked about with Ray and with all these like when you're doing these female characters, I think you do them a, a, a injustice when you have to resort to all these petty political messages and things like that instead of just focusing on where the story wants to take you. And once you just start focusing on where the story is, then that's when it gets great. And no show has done it better than Game of Thrones. At this point, no show has done it better than Game of Thrones. Let's see. Richard Reeves says wanting to see a Star Wars film in theaters should not be controversial. It's okay to want to see something as it was intended to entertain. Sure, we may not fundamentally agree with some of the content, but the theater experience speaks to us all. And that's the thing. Yeah, that it's normally that it's the theater experience for me that that I want to get back to. I want to get back to that nostalgic feeling of going to the theater and seeing a Star Wars film. Hell, even a Star Wars trailer would do me great. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty much down bad on it. But we're joined back by the Knight Lucas.
Yeah, sorry for the abrupt disappearance, bad connection. But
No,
no,
you're
yeah,
good.
like I said, just being called the lore master, I don't know, man, just makes me feel good, appreciate it,
Oh,
all
it ain't
that.
no problem. It ain't no
Yeah,
problem, dog. It ain't no problem.
still
We're
Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, I was sort of shifting into from Game of Thrones to just Star Wars now because I want to see a film in theaters again. I'm ready to see Star Wars in theaters again, man. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty down bad over here.
So you think you'll go see the Mandalorian movie, the Ray movie, the first Jedi Order, which I'm not going to call it that, but that movie, because those are coming out in theaters. And are you going to see them regardless of if you believe they'll be good or bad, just because you want to see Star Wars in the theaters again?
Here's the harsh truth that I think a lot of fans don't want to admit because we have a lot of people in the community talking about, oh man, I'm done with Star Wars, and don't get me wrong, opinions are valid on why they dislike and hate Disney Star Wars. But just because people dislike and hate Disney Star Wars doesn't mean that the fans give up on Star Wars in total. So, and I think that's where a lot of, like I said on the last pod, man, I'm like, I don't think people are actually going to put their money where their mouth is and be like, yeah, we're not showing up for a Star Wars movie. Believe me, that people are going to show up for the Ray movie. Probably people are going to show up for definitely the Mandalorian movie because it's been so impactful. Um,
I'll
you
I'll,
know,
I'll agree with you on the Mandalorian movie and even that first Jedi Order movie, but the Ray movie, Eric, really, I don't know. Like maybe some will show up, but I feel like there will be lots of empty rows and seats. I just get the feeling, but I
I
could be
mean,
wrong. Could be.
maybe, bro. But when it's Star Wars, you're talking about, you know what I'm saying? It's Star Wars, man. Like, you
But
really
no,
just
no,
gonna?
no. That's thing, Eric. It's not Star Wars. It's Ray. Have you noticed something? Well, one thing I want you to notice. Everyone's calling it the Ray movie, but from what I remember, I believe the title was called Star Wars Episode 10. I think I think that's what they were calling it. Star Wars Episode 10. No one's calling it that. Everyone I know at least, we're all calling it the Ray movie. There's a reason for that. I hope you notice there is a clear reason for that.
I mean, there is, but I mean, still, it's Star Wars. People are gonna go see it. I don't. I really think people, and this is just for the. It might even be for the craps and giggles. It might even be for just to clown on it. Regardless, I think people might come in and just clown on it regardless. But I still think butts are gonna be in seats for Star Wars theatrically because fans are starved. Like you saw the Phantom Menace, right? The Phantom Menace celebrated its anniversary, and we covered that on live as well.
Hmm.
And the box office, it dominated at the box office, man. Raked in a lot of money still, and people showed out to the theater in droves. Fans still showed out in droves
But people
to.
like the Phantom Menace, Eric. I can't say the same for the Ray movie, but maybe there are maybe I'm wrong. Maybe lots of people will show up regardless and they'll have fun. It's possible.
I would hope so. I mean, I'm not. I mean, now look, you know, uh, I
Oh
think
wow, wow, Richard just wants to be a jerk. I see.
never underestimate the power of apathy and boredom, my friends. Hey,
Look, I may be apathetic to some things, but I am not bored most of the time.
I mean, it's because, and I'll go more into this with your thoughts when Evan gets here too, because and it's going on like what 8 years since the Last Jedi, I think, 8 years just about, and and I know like I've even tweeted. I said, look, it would be pointless for people to just spend endless amounts of time, on social media talking about that movie. But it's impossible to because the Last Jedi did so many things that just blew the fandom in all kinds of different directions. I think a lot of people are still recovering from that. I don't think the rage is as mad now, but I still think a lot of people are holding on to that because. And I looked at some of the critique videos. So I went back yesterday. I told Evan this before I bring him on. I went back and looked at so many videos of these critiques, and I'm like, this thing goes deeper than just one or two, you know, little mistakes here and there. This it's like the whole thing from the bottom up was like rotten from the get. And fans, I'm like, you can't get that back. You look at the Mark Hamill interviews and how he reacted. You just can't like.
Didn't he sign an NDA? I'm like, man, he must have really. Okay, to be fair, he was as polite as he could be at the time, but I'm like, Disney must have been like, Mark, you got to stop doing this. You gotta.
They tried. They
Yeah.
tried. And welcome to the pod, my brother Evan Elliott here.
Oh
What's
man,
up?
what is that? Is that ginger ale? Damn it!
That's apple juice.
Ah
Stop.
man,
Ginger,
apple juice. That's
ginger
something.
kind of apple juice. It's ginger ale and Crown Royal apple.
Oh, you decided to drink tonight on a night that
You
I'm not drinking.
lucky
Wow.
bastard. You
Wow.
lucky
Anytime we're talking
bastard.
about the Last Jedi, it's mandatory.
Yeah.
There's no way I
Yeah.
can talk about this film without drinking a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
Real quick, let me go ahead and just jump right in and bounce off what you were saying. No, it's not one couple of things that make the Last Jedi so terrible. And for a long time, Eric, you called the Last Jedi a polarizing film, a controversial film.
I stand by that.
Respectfully, I don't think it's controversial. I don't think it's polarizing. I think it's trash. I think it is an insult to the Star Wars movies. I think it is the worst thing to ever come out of Star Wars. Even though I can somewhat respect the opinion of those who enjoy The Last Jedi, I myself can find absolutely nothing outside of the visuals look good to say anything nice about this film. I absolutely detest the movie. I think it's horrific. I think it's disrespectful to everything that Star Wars established and everything that made Star Wars great, namely Luke Skywalker, arguably the most iconic hero of all time. I've spoken on this a million times. People know where I stand on with Luke's interpretation in episode 8. I think it borrows the same cliche that every other freaking movie nowadays does, which is, hey kids, don't love your heroes from the 80s and 90s because when they get old, they're going to be old, miserable, alone grumps. Every single one of them. That's the fate of every single one of your heroes. Um,
Yeah, they've
and
killed the broken hero arc.
yeah, I
Uh,
just, it
yeah,
was cool for a while, but now it's all anyone does.
I
And
know.
And it's like, can we just not have one hero like Yoda who just dies a Jedi? It's like he was old, he was decrepit, he could barely walk, but he died a Jedi. Like he died after training Luke, and he went out peacefully. He couldn't do anything anymore, but he wasn't this miserable old grump. He was still Yoda to a certain extent. But even leaving Luke aside, and I'll bring y'all in after I say this, I could go piece by piece through what I hate about The Last Jedi, but let me start with this and get y'all's opinion. I'm of the mindset, and I think I said this on the last episode, a huge part of what made Star Wars so iconic, at least for me. But real quick, let me run through the first 6 movies. Episode 1, what's the most iconic moment most viewed on YouTube? Qui Gon and Obi Wan versus Darth Maul. Episode 2, it's Dooku versus Obi-Wan and Anakin and later Yoda. Episode 3, we already know what the most iconic moment is. It's Obi-Wan versus Anakin, bar none. That's the most viewed moment. Episode 4, it's Vader versus Obi-Wan. Episode 5, it's the I am your father bit right after the battle between Luke and Vader. Episode 6, it's the final confrontation between Vader, Luke, and the Emperor. You see the pattern here. You see, what do they all have in common? A lightsaber duel. That is what made Star Wars so iconic. Every single movie built towards an all time great lightsaber duel. And that's something the sequel trilogy failed miserably. And I mean, in the worst possible way. Episode 8 being the worst, where you just didn't have it. Like, it was there. They teased it. Like, okay, here's Luke and the Resistance. Here's Kylo in the First Order. We could have had a Lord of the Rings style ending where Kylo runs out with the First Order, Luke comes out with the Resistance, and they clash. And it's this all time epic battle. And you know what? If you want to kill Luke Skywalker, kill him on the battlefield. Have Kylo Ren stab Luke after a long epic battle. And then that sets up Kylo perfectly to be the supreme leader in episode 9. You've killed Han, you've killed Snoke, and you've killed Luke. You're an icon villain now. You're up there with the Dooku's and the Mauls and Vader and Like, you're up there now, dude. You've established that. But they couldn't give us that. And here's the last thing I'll say. I'm so sick and freaking tired of hearing the lame excuse of, well, Evan, you can't expect these lightsaber duels to be as good as the prequels because the prequel Jedi had gone through training. I'm sorry. I thought, now maybe I watched a different sequel movie, but I thought Kylo Ren trained his life under Luke Skywalker as a Jedi and then went to the dark side being trained under Snoke. What were they training him to do exactly? Not use a lightsaber?
Yeah.
So that's my thing. So just to y'all, let me get y'all's opinion. Do y'all think that the sequel trilogy could have been made better had they ended with an epic lightsaber duel? And do you think there is any valid excuse for them not giving us a lightsaber duel worthy of what we've seen in every other Star Wars movie ever?
I'm gonna start this off by to your first point. I'm gonna answer that because I love that question. Firstly, I will say that with the sequels, and I just tweeted about it. I said I think that we should honestly be in a fourth trilogy by now. I think. Why? Because hypothetically, I think that if the sequels were done right, I think you give that shine that you just talked about to Han and Luke and Leia. You give them that reunion. You let them go, balls out with the action, build up the tension, and then have Ray, Finn, and Poe in the background earning their stripes, under the OGs. And then you build that. And then once we maybe do get to episode 9, then then the passing of the torch happens. Then you have Luke going out in a blaze of glory and passing his torch to Ray and Finn. Then you have all these different interactions that we could have had. And then that sets you up for what? More hype, because now people want to know, okay, well, now that they've gone and they've passed the torch to them, what's next? Now you got people hyped to see what happens with Ray, Finn, and Poe. And the next thing you know, oh, we're ready for episodes 10, 11, and 12. We're ready. We want a whole new trilogy. People are hyped for Ray because she's earned her place. People are hyped for Finn because he's properly developed. People are hyped for Poe, and so on and so forth. And secondly, to answer that main question, I think that now, bar none, I understand it's like choosing the best from the worst, and I won't even say that it's the worst. But when we talk about lightsaber duels in the sequels, of which in episode 8, there's no excuse to not have one. There's no excuse. I understand trying to do something different. I understand that, and maybe you do that within the confines of trying to create a new type of dueling or a new setting, something like that, innovative. I get that. But to not have a lightsaber duel at all, to have a movie where blades do not cross paths at all, that is an issue. And so when we look at that, and then not only that, you talked about training. You mentioned training because the Force Awakens totally just skipped right over that. They got right to the, oh well, here's Ray, and because she grew up on Jakku, that automatically equates to her being able to handle a lightsaber.
No, Jay, she's the awakening. That's it.
Mm-mm,
That's the explanation. It's
mm-mm.
like her Jakku experience, her scavenging expertise. None of that is why she beat Kylo in that fight.
It's
None
a
of it.
high
No,
midichlorian count.
No,
hey,
it's not. It's not even that. Ray is the ultimate anomaly. She made the Force awaken.
well,
That's
well, well,
yeah.
well, well. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. In that, in doing, in doing that, we were so hyped about that walking out the theater, but then when we sat down and thought about it, we're like, wait a minute, how does that even work if she didn't? And then okay, we might be able to let it slide if we
Wait,
walk
wait,
into.
Jay. I got a
Oh,
question for you, man. When has the Force ever been asleep? I gotta know. Like,
I don't know.
do you can you think of a time the Force has ever been asleep for
I
it to be
can't.
I don't know about the
awakened?
Force, but I was watching episode 8.
Hey, I, I'll say this to finish my point. I will say this. Um, we sat down and thought about it, and it's just like, well, last time I checked, the Force wasn't asleep. I think it was hyped and jumping, which was 2005 when I last saw Revenge of the Sith in theaters. So the Force was quite jumping back then. Um, but all that to say this, we walk into episode 8 thinking, okay, maybe we'll let 7 slide if Ray can get to this. She's got to this island, and we can see what's going on here with with Luke, and maybe he might train her. But judging from the trailer, and I remember where I was. We were at Coastal. Me and Evan went to Coastal at the same college, and I think it was after drama class on Thursday night. It was Thursday night football. Chicago Bears had a home game. I forgot against who, but that night, this was in partnership with ESPN. Disney was showing.
Probably when they played the Packers and we beat them,
Yeah,
as per usual.
I think it was. I think it was. Why you? Yeah, for real. And um, we saw the first trailer for The Last Jedi, or the teaser, and then
I was hyped.
I was hyped too. We had a lot of questions going into that. I thought, in retrospect, I'm like, okay, they're playing with a slippery slope when we talk about the Jedi must end, and I'm like, oh, that's the way to end. That's the way to end the trailer right there. But then we get to the movie, and then we all know that. I don't even want to recount that. I can't even revisit that.
Yeah, man, I was with you, man. When that first trailer came out and Luke uttered those words, I was like, I gotta see this fucking movie. Why would Luke ever say that? And boy,
Wow,
was I disappointed.
boy, were we disappointed.
Yeah.
And my last point, going into, and I to answer your question about the lightsaber duels. This might be, I don't know, this shouldn't be controversial because it makes sense. Rise of Skywalker might not be the best of 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 any of the Star Wars movies, but I do put it at, to me, I put it at the top of my sequel trilogy list. Force Awakens being second and TLJ being last, of course. But I say that because they had to go back and fix all these mistakes. So when we get Ray training again and we get all this stuff that builds her up like she should have been, when we get the Kylo versus Ray 2 on the Death Star ruins, that actually isn't a bad lightsaber battle. I thought it was a darn good lightsaber battle. They even switched out the quietness for it and put the Duel of Fates and the Battle of Heroes with it, and it made it better. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, you see how, but that was episode 9, of course. By that time, we're all the way down the road now. The what's been written has been written, and what's done is done.
Per-
So
Personally, I put Force Awakens over Rise of Skywalker.
that's fair. That's
As
fair.
as I've said a million times,
Oh.
I think Force Awakens was a legit good movie. I mean, I can forgive Ray being somewhat overpowered. I get it because there's the high midichlorian count. Maybe she's just super powerful. She's wielding Luke's lightsaber, which is power in and of itself, apparently. But my only issue was with Force Awakens is the way that Kylo Ren progressively became more and more, or I should say, less and less intimidating. I said on a
Yeah.
previous podcast, the one thing I demand of my Star Wars villains, you better be intimidating. Like, you better have that Sith swag about you, for lack of a better term. But even when we were just reviewing the Acolyte,
Yeah.
and I said, I can forgive the bad acting, the bad writing, and a lot of crap this show has put on simply because this Sith dude showed up and showed out. I freaking love that episode. What was it? Episode 4? Episode 5 where all that happened?
Yeah.
Like, dude, that
Yeah.
was beautiful watching that. And I'm like, there is no excuse. Like, okay, if Ray's that powerful, this is what bothers me, Eric. This is the double standard here. You can't expect the lightsaber duels to be as good as the prequels because nobody's that powerful as they were in the prequel trilogies. But on the flip side of that, Rey is so powerful, she doesn't need training to hold a lightsaber. And so I'm like, which is it?
Yeah.
Which is it? Like,
Yeah.
they found a way to combine the worst of both of those points and
Yeah.
make it Kylo's just weak. Even
Yeah.
though he's trained his whole life with Luke and then under Snoke. So he's got Sith training, Jedi training. The last guy we saw who had that in the uh, OG6 was Anakin Skywalker, and we all know how bad he was. So to have Kylo be the wimp he is was quite off putting. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you could have fixed so much. Like, okay, for example, before I pass it to Lucas Knight, because he hadn't been
Yeah.
talking as much as me, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to hog
No,
everything.
no, don't apologize. You're cool, man. Go ahead.
But, people in episode 1, people were able to forgive Jar Jar, or a lot of people were able to forgive the annoyance of Jar Jar. They were able to forgive the cringe, so to speak, even though you don't find it cringe. I find it cringe. Anakin and Padme episode 2. People like I myself am able to overlook that because I know Darth Maul's coming in episode 1. I know Count Dooku's coming in episode 2. So I know there's a payoff here. But
Yeah.
with episode 8, you give me Holdo, you give me Rose. two of the worst characters I've ever seen in Star Wars. I can't
Yeah.
stand either of them. Rose is just annoying. Holdo's a useless idiot. Oh, you don't need to know my plan, but my whole plan the whole time was run like hell and pray to God that, some rebel hears me.
Yeah.
But there's no payoff. I don't get, after 2.5 hours of BS, I don't get an epic lightsaber duel. I don't get an epic showdown. I don't get a Sith showing up and showing out. I get Rey and Kylo in a kind of cool throne room battle, but then you set it up. It's Luke. It's Kylo. How did Luke get there? I don't care. But he's there, dang it. And here we have the ultimate showdown. We could have gotten Kylo versus the master that he's been wanting to kill for so long.
Mm-hmm.
We could, and Eric, could you imagine? Just hold on. What it would have felt like in the because when Luke died, when I saw the theater in theaters, I saw it opening night. Everybody was just kind of, wait, what?
Was that was the official reaction from your
Yeah,
theater?
there wasn't this like when Han Solo died. It was a,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
but with Luke, it was just like, wait a minute, what? What
yeah,
just happened? What? It was
yeah,
confusion. It was just like this. This is dumb. Like, wait,
yeah.
he just died? Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine what the moment would have been if Kylo and Luke were actually dueling it out, and Kylo somehow tricked Luke and got the best of him, and just
Oh
put a
wow.
lightsaber, and like Luke just gets a lightsaber right through his chest?
Yeah,
Could you imagine what that moment would have been like in the theaters? It
yeah,
would have been people crying. It would have been people like, "Oh my gosh, this can't happen!" Like what? That's
yeah,
the moment you need for Kylo. But then you have like I don't know what happens after that, but that would have set up Kylo so perfectly. You
yeah,
had all the puzzle pieces there, Disney, and you put it together wrong. And that's what I can't forget. That's
yeah,
what pisses me off so much about episode 8 and its legacy. And it set up episode 9 for failure. Episode 9 was never going to be great because episode 8 dug it in a hole so deep. What could you have done with episode 9? There was nothing to do. You had to bring back Palpatine. You had to. You had to do something to draw hype because after episode 8, nobody was hyped for episode 9. Nobody was. I mean, maybe there were a select few sequel fans who were hyped, but for the most part, you killed Luke, you killed Snoke. Where do you go now? Like, where do you actually go? There's just so much episode 8 did that was just so anticlimactic. And this is the last thing I'll say, then I'll shut up for a while. About to pour me another one. But, um, and I'll let y'all debate this, and y'all tell me if I'm wrong on any of these. The cardinal sin of episode 8, outside of the treatment of Luke, was everything episode 7 hyped up, episode 8 ruined. Who's Ray's parents? Nobody. Who's Snoke? Doesn't matter. We're going to kill him off. You know, who's, we're going to see Luke train Ray. Kind of, but not really. You know, in episode 5, we saw Yoda make Anakin face his fears. We saw Luke make Ray lift rocks. Like that's the difference there. Like oh, Kylo and Sith training. Episode 7 ends. Snoke says, "Bring Kylo to me. It's time to complete his training." What does that mean? Well, apparently nothing. Apparently it meant nothing. So I'm gonna let y'all debate those points. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'll be right back.
What are your thoughts on that, Dan?
Oh, my thoughts. I was just processing. Can you like what about episode 8? All the disappointing things. And
Just, I mean, yeah, I mean, just in general, just in
yeah,
general.
no. I know Evan probably wouldn't like it. Maybe he's listening. Maybe he's not. But The reason why Snoke just gets killed off and we don't really get any payoff to the mystery or intrigue behind his character is apparently because Ryan Johnson had no interest in Snoke's character whatsoever. He admitted this in the behind the scenes. He was more interested in Kylo, had no interest in Snoke, and then of course he kills off the character and that's it. We don't there's nothing about it. And like, to me, these are just examples on how not to write. I don't know. Maybe you
No,
disagree.
no, I agree. Though I agree because watching a few of those critique videos, it was about just taking it from where it was, and I mean Ryan just you it's certain things that you when you do it you have to have a reason for why you can't just do it for the sake of, you know what I'm saying. So
Mm-hmm.
if like Evan said, if you're gonna bring if Snoke says bring Kylo to me, it's time to complete his training. What training? Because The Last Jedi is a direct sequel. We go right from the end of Force Awakens right to the beginning of TLJ. What training did Kylo have to do? And when he finally meets face to face with Snoke again, there's no training. It's just getting
That's the
berated.
problem with training would be useless, and that's the issue with Ray, and just in general said training is useless. What can Snipe? What's the point of Snoke teaching Kylo anything when he knows that due to the Force dyad that was inherently connected towards him, towards Kylo and Ray, that whatever Kylo learns, Ray will just gain because their souls are bonded. That's how the Force dyad works. That's why
Yeah,
Ray doesn't need training, because if Kylo learns something, Ray's gonna learn it too. So if the goal is to basically give Kylo training so that he can, get the edge on Ray and the Jedi,
yeah,
then it would be pointless because Ray would just know what Kylo learned. And
right.
one of the bigger issues is that Snoke already knew about this connection. As a matter of fact, he amplified that. He in the movie he admitted, I knew your Force connection existed and I amplified it even more. So it's like Snoke already knows about this. He's
Well,
basically made
well,
it work.
he said that he was the one who. So technically, the dyad didn't exist because he said it was me who bridged your minds together. I'm the one that put y'all's. I'm the one that connected y'all in the force. But
That's what I thought before, Jay. I thought like I know what you're saying. I thought about that before, and that's what I kept saying. But then I debated a couple sequel fans, and I had to go back to the scene in the movie and look at it again. And it turns out this Force dyad was always there between Rey and Kylo or whatever, but Snoke just amplified it by bridging their minds. I'm like, okay, this makes no sense, but sure, I'll roll with it. But the issue is this concept makes training irrelevant in Star Wars. It like Ray's whole character, her entire existence for being
yeah,
destroys it. Like I said, she's an anomaly in Star Wars for a reason. If she can just gain abilities due to being connected to someone who actually does the work, she doesn't have to learn anything.
right.
Jake gave her 2 out of 3 lessons in the Last Jedi. Or I know we call him Last Jedi Luke. I just call him Jake. Jake gave her 2 out of 3 lessons on why the Jedi suck, and everything else Ray has is due to her connection to Kylo. So Ray got no training in that movie,
Nothing.
technically, aside from the sparring she did on the fucking mountains. You know,
Well, I mean, even still in that, like, even when now that we got it with episode 9 and we got her training, which made it so much more valid to me. It just made it seem like, okay, now I can sort of get behind this
she
race.
runs on a training course for like 10 minutes and.
That's fine. That's look. No, no, no. Listen.
Okay.
That's all we needed. We needed to see effort on the behalf of training. That's all we needed. We didn't see Luke do nothing but what? He only because things were moving so fast and the Empire was so, you know what I'm saying, just on
Hey,
the heels of the
you know what?
rebellion.
You want me to play devil's advocate, Jay?
Not yet. Hold on. Hold on.
Okay, you go ahead. You go
I'm
ahead.
gonna let you play devil's advocate. Luke only got the train for a short time with Obi-Wan in the flesh, because everything was happening so fast with the Empire in A New
Yeah.
Hope. But even still, having that blaster shield and Luke grabbing that lightsaber and learning how to block and deflect by using his feelings and that gives us all, that lets us know, okay, he's on the way to being a Jedi. Episode 5 builds on that. And then when we get to episode 6, boom, there we are. That's all we needed from Ray. We didn't have to have the whole, you know what I'm saying? Even the implication of it is all we needed. And we didn't see Anakin literally train in the prequels, but we know that there's a progression from 1 to 2 because he has his Padawan braid. You know what I'm saying? They talk
Yeah.
about how much it's implied that he has been training and that he's been risen up in the Jedi Order.
There's also a much bigger time gap.
That's the
Yeah,
devil's
exactly.
advocate I was gonna bring
Go
up
ahead.
to you.
Go
We
ahead.
don't see Anakin. We don't see Anakin train at, like, we know his training's described, but we don't see him literally train at all in those movies. But I have a question for you. Despite us not, seeing that, why is Anakin's story still more appealing than Rey?
Because he is that he is Star Wars.
Well,
He
okay,
is
that's
he.
part of it, Jay. There was another thing you're missing,
Do you
but
want
go
me to
on.
answer that?
Here's why. Here's why.
All right, go ahead.
Because this is the tragedy of Darth Vader. That's Star Wars.
Yeah,
When we started episode 4, 5, and 6. We already know that Vader is this awesome warrior, and that so was Anakin. And then we go through that. Prequels don't do anything but build and show us how that came to pass. And even still in that, that is what makes his character so much more significant than Rey. It's the
is
development.
that a babe? Did I hear a baby? I could be
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's my
Yeah,
son. He's right
you
next
go
to me.
ahead. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
But go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say there was one. Yeah, you're correct on all that, but there's one vital thing you're missing, and
What's
that's
that?
Anakin gets his ass kicked over and over and over again.
He does.
And even when he is a knight in shining armor who saves the day and makes Obi-Wan look, not as skilled by comparison with how much he surpassed, he still gets his ass kicked. We see like Anakin, he barely wins a fight in all 3 movies, and the films center on him having to learn not to give into his attachments and his own issues and how he fails. It's like, even in us not seeing Anakin literally train,
Yeah.
it's establishing the narrative he has flaws that he has to
Yeah.
overcome, and
And
we don't see that with Rey at all.
right. And let's not because I know all the fans have this sort of perception of Anakin that he was always the perfect. Let's not do that. Let's remember now in episode 2 this man came out the gate talking hella reckless. You remember Evan, he was talking to Padme, in some ways, in a lot of
Oh,
ways.
I'm in agony.
No, 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 not that. When he's talking to Padme about the training, he's like, "I love Obi-Wan. He's as powerful as Master Windu and as wise as Master Yoda. But in some ways, in a lot of ways, I'm really ahead of him." I'm like, "Hold on, now, Anakin. Hold on. You can't be talking like that. Just coming out the gate talking reckless." So that ass whooping he got at the end at the end of episode 2 by Count Dooku, he had that coming because you just ain't gonna talk reckless like that. You know what I'm saying? And you only been a Padawan for so many years. You man, like, so yes, Dan is right. Anakin absolutely got his butt kicked a handful of times. He didn't just win his first lightsaber duel off the rip, unlike some people I know. But go ahead, Evan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, to answer your question, Lucas Knight, what makes Anakin more appealing than Rey? 2 words: character development. And
Thank you.
It's that simple. It's what makes the Dark Knight trilogy my favorite Batman series or trilogy live action of all time.
You just
That's
became my best friend, Evan. Just from that statement alone.
Thank you. That's what makes him different than Michael Keaton for me. Because with Michael Keaton, we just kind of see, like, okay, I'm already, as much as I love Michael Keaton, and I do freaking love Michael Keaton, he's already Batman. He's already a butt kicker. There's not, I mean, there's some struggle saving Vicky Vale, dealing with Catwoman in the next movie. But for the most part, we don't know about much about Bruce Wayne's life. The focus is more so on Batman's on the big screen. Here's Jack Nicholson's Joker, Danny DeVito Penguin. But then we get to Christian Bale and we get to see him starting out in a foreign prison. We see him training. We see him dealing with his anger issues. We see him progressing through his emotions to ultimately becoming Batman. And we see him struggle at first, getting set on fire by Scarecrow. And we see him in the second movie with Heath Ledger, my favorite character in any movie ever, except maybe Darth Vader. Like Ledger, Joker, Darth Vader, it's always like this. It's
Oh,
always
really?
for me, it is, man. I love Ledger's Joker so freaking much. Eric knows this, and I love Darth Vader. They're my two favorite villains of all time, and that's a conversation for another day. I can go into detail as to why that is. But my point is, we see that, and then in episode 3, we get to see him deal with the repercussions of being Batman. We get to see that. Now Bane shows up. Now it's this whole nother level of consequences to deal with. And as so likewise with Anakin, we see this kid growing up on a slave planet. He's a slave. Like, I mean, that's really depressing to think about. But he's this young, bright kid with dreams and he wants to do all these things. And Qui-Gon sees that potential in him. And Qui-Gon brings him along after he wins the pod race. He's just this sweet little kid. And then at the end of the first movie, he gets to train to be a Jedi. Then we get to the second movie, he's a teenager, and he's dealing with his feelings for Padme. He's dealing with being, as Eric pointed out, a talented but arrogant Jedi. There's a lot of things he's not in control of. He's
Yeah.
full of himself. He's immature. He's not ready to be a Jedi Master yet. And like you said, him going at Count Dooku like he did and getting his butt kicked, he had that coming.
Yeah.
And then we get to episode 3, he's a lot more skilled, but there's still some emotional things going on with him. There's still that lust for power that you and I have argued in the past, Eric. I'm of the position the Jedi Council was always right to deny him the rank of Jedi Master. He didn't need to be a Jedi Master. He was not in control of his emotions. He was not going down the path of the Jedi. He was going down the path of the Sith. All he was motivated by was power. He wasn't interested in bringing about peace to the galaxy. He was interested in about obtaining power to make sure Padme never died because he didn't want to have to go through what he went through with his mother, which is
Yep.
understandable, totally understandable. But at the end of the day, the sad reality of life is people you love are going to die. Now, does that mean you never love anybody? Like, no, that's life. You have to take the bad with the good. You have to take the happiness with the sadness. Sad but true. That's just life. It's heartbreaking to think about, but that's what it is. But my point is, you have all of these elements in Anakin's story that make up a great story. With Ray, there's just so much you don't know. In episode 7, you know nothing. So episode 8 is teased like, okay, we're going to learn something about her. No,
Yeah.
not really. Her parents are nobody from nowhere, right?
Yeah.
There's no
Evan, it's
character
about her
development.
finding herself.
Yeah,
That's
but
it's,
she doesn't find anything.
I
She's
know.
the same. She's the same in episode 7 as she is episode
Uh,
9. Nothing changes. Her personality doesn't change. She's not more at peace with
what
anything.
personality?
There's
Sorry.
not exactly what personality. There's nothing. So what makes her story less intriguing than Anakin's, or even take Luke Skywalker's story, episodes 4 through 6, shy farm boy. His story parallels Anakin in some ways, because in episode 5 and in episode 2, we see these Jedi who are talented but overly ambitious. But the
Yeah.
difference is in episode 6, we see Luke Skywalker become everything Anakin could have and should have been. They're both powerful, but whereas Anakin was motivated by power, Luke was motivated by love to save his father. And so you see that difference of Luke just being so calm, he's collected, nothing can knock him off his Jedi swag. He's just so at peace. That's what I love about Luke Skywalker in episode 6. He's so chill. He's so just Jabba, I bring you an offer, accept it or die. Like he's so chill about it. He's so like even standing on the diving board about to get fed to the Sarlacc. He's like, Jabba, I'm gonna give you one last chance, bro. Bring me or die. Bring me or die. He gave him the chance. They didn't listen. But whereas Anakin in Episode 3, he's chopping kids up. So I mean that's the start. But you have these stories. Ray, I'm good in the beginning. I'm good in the middle. I'm good in the end.
Yeah,
There's
that
just nothing overly interesting. She's almost like the female version of Superman in some ways, where it's just like, why is she or he so powerful? They just
Oh.
are.
yeah.
They just
With
are.
Superman has reasons. It's like the Ray. It's like okay, Ray has reasons too, but I would say Ray's reasons just contradict all of Star Wars lore.
at least Superman has a struggle. Superman and
That's fair.
even if we're strictly comparing these recent, and this will lead me to my next point, which I want to get from you guys. Even like comparing Batman v Superman to Ray, even that Superman and
Batman v
all.
Superman 100%. I may have my issues with that movie, but I will take that 10 times over the entire sequel trilogy.
Yeah, because you see how much development is there. You see, oh, it's a different world, and we can't just do whatever we want to do, and there's consequences to having Superman. So it's more like a conversation. Well, must there be a Superman? How do we limit this guy? What's the problem? And then Clark is just like, man, what do y'all want me to do? I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I'm doing what I believe is right. You know what I'm saying? And he just has to learn that lesson of, I got to do what I got to do regardless. I'm going to do the right thing regardless of what
Eric, you know what's my
everyone
biggest
thinks.
issue with Clark in that movie is that his deal with Batman. He's like, look, Batman, you're going around branding people. You're being you're being a vigilante, and I'm like,
Well,
Superman, you are a vigilante.
well, that, well,
You
that,
don't answer to the military or the law either. Like,
that
what
was
is
the,
this?
that was the whole point. And I don't want to get sidetracked on BVS because Evan knows how much I love Batman v Superman. But
Eric knows how much I hate that movie.
I mean that is highlighted when Bruce talks to Clark and he tells him, he's like, "That's funny that you say that, Clark. Considering every time your hero saves a cat out of a tree, your editorial writes a puff piece about an alien who could burn the whole place down." And so, and in that moment, Clark's just so hurt because he's like, "Oh well, the world is not as black and white as I thought it was." And I'm like, "Yeah, you didn't stop to think that you're doing the same thing, Clark, and you can't just, you feel me?" But Superman
Yeah.
learns that lesson. But either way, neither here nor there. That's the development. With Ray, what is that? You know what I'm saying? I understand some of her internal struggles, being alone, trying to find her family. I can get that. I can dig that. Even in the Last Jedi, when she's crying out to Ben, like, Ben, don't do this. You know what I'm saying? Or the scene.
I can't even get that, man. Like,
The
and I say this because why? Why does she want to look for a family? They haven't even established that.
well, that's because that's part of the mystery. That's what Episode 8 was supposed to answer, but
Yeah.
didn't answer. It seems like they were on the way, but they never answered it because we got there a little bit with the connection scene where she just had finally accepted. Okay, well, I'm a nobody, and she connects with Kylo. I'm like, okay, that gives you a reason to choose your own path, dude. Okay, that's some development. But then they backtrack it all back in the last scene where he's like, your parents were nobody, and then she just pushes him away. I'm like, oh, you see, like, why did you do that? But
And
all
somehow
that,
she's Palpatine's granddaughter.
and then somehow she's Palpatine's granddaughter. So we get Episode 9, and we have to shoehorn all that training. When I first watched Rise of Skywalker, my head just went shoot, because I'd never seen so much story have to happen in the first half of a Star Wars movie in my life. It was just like do 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 do. Kylo Ren's the leader of the First Order. He's got to find this wayfinder. Do-do-do. He talks to Sidious. Do-do-do. Light speed skipping. Do-do-do. Now Rey's training. And I'm like, all this rushing. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So now that they give us that, to you guys, how does that give any incentive for people to want to see Rey's new Jedi Order movie? Like, what's the incentive to see that after
I
the
mean,
sequel trilogy?
people who like Ray are gonna go watch the movie regardless. I don't know how big that fandom is for Ray, but I mean, fans of Ray are gonna go support Ray
Yeah,
Ray
in the new
Lowe's.
movie. Yeah, I mean, and listen real quick. Even though I revile the sequel trilogy, I'm not gonna tell anybody they can't like it. I mean, me
oh no,
personally,
never, never.
I mean, it's a free country. You can like what you want. Me personally, I think the sequel trilogy is a steaming pile of dog. You know what? But
Yeah,
that's just me. You're entitled to your own opinion. But
yeah.
in terms of the story, I mean, I'm not sure where you can go because I
where
mean,
where do we
Kylo,
go?
Kylo's not a Sith anymore. Snoke is dead. Who was even left for her to fight? That's
Not
kind of
on.
the issue here. And this just goes back to a point I've made a million times. I don't think there needed to be a Star Wars property of any kind post Return of the Jedi. I think that would have been the most fitting end you can think of. The dark side is permanently defeated. Vader turns to a Jedi, or he dies a Jedi. Palpatine is killed. The ultimate evil is killed. The end. Like, that's it. We didn't need an episode 7. We didn't need it. I mean, did some people want it? Sure. But remember when episode 3 was advertised, what was shown at the very end of that trailer? The saga is
Is
complete.
complete.
It's
Yeah,
over. And that should have been it. And any other Star Wars property that came out should have fit in the parameters of that. I'm fine with, like, I think Disney would have been more successful with a Darth Revan trilogy or a Darth Nihilus trilogy or some old Republic stuff. Stuff Star Wars fans love, as opposed to trying to build off a completed story. I mean, it would be like
yeah.
trying to make another Harry Potter movie post Deathly Hollows. I know The Cursed Child came out. I never read that one, me personally. Um, but, it's just like we didn't need it. We did not need it. It's just an over. I think it felt cash grabby from the beginning for me. It felt like a Disney cash grab, as opposed to something like Rogue One, which that's a cool fill-in story. How did the rebels ever get the plans? And that was a phenomenal film, in my opinion. I think that's the best, far and away, Disney Star Wars film, with no close second.
Without a shadow
Um,
of a doubt.
yeah, that's just, I mean, the scene with Vader at the end alone, bro, that was epic.
Puts it
That
out there.
was,
Yeah.
oh my god,
Badass.
dude! I stood up in the theater along with like 10 other Star Wars geeks and gave that one scene a standing ovation. Like just that one rebel yelling in desperation, "Open fire!" And then Vader just, oh my gosh, he made a kebab out of all of them.
Yeah.
Like it was so epic. But that's what kills me about the sequel trilogy. Is like, Eric, I understand you do something different, but guess what? Me pouring A1 steak sauce and ketchup on vanilla ice cream is something different.
I
But you
might
don't
want to
want.
try that. Sorry.
But you know what? You eat that and you're gonna throw up.
Yeah.
Me urinating in your coffee is something different, but you're not gonna want to drink that. Doing something different isn't always good. That's my point. Like, just stick with what freaking works.
Yeah.
And I'll pass this back to you guys. I'm gonna hop off in about 10 minutes, but back to the sequel trilogy. What will forever piss me off about that trilogy? You had it. You had it with Episode 8. Luke trains Ray. Ray grows in the Force. Kylo trains with Snoke. Kylo grows in the Force. You have an epic battle. The same formula that has worked for Star Wars since the 80s. and you decided that you were going to do something totally different and you thought it would work. Like, put a quarter in your hind end because you done played yourself, Disney. That's my thoughts on episode 8.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Evan. Before you go, since you say you're leaving in 10 minutes, that thing I said that meme I wanted to show you guys last time, but for some reason present screen didn't work. Eric, I want to let you know I posted the link in the private chat if you ever want to show it to us. If your present button works, but that's only if you guys want to look at it. But
Let's have at it.
sure,
Uh,
go for it.
if I can, I don't know if I can bring it to. Oh, okay. It's the meme with Obi-Wan and Luke. It says, "I can't kill my own father."
You saw it?
Yeah. Could you
Yeah.
could you kill a nephew? Oh yeah, no problem.
I'm telling you guys. I'm telling you.
Golly.
Yeah, it's
Golly.
yeah.
That's I mean, it's it's just some things that and look, and I know a lot of people might
I
say
wonder if Ryan's an Old Republic fan. I asked that because there was this storyline in the Old Republic where the Jedi saw visions of their Padawans turning into Sith, turning to the dark side. So they're like, okay, let's kill our students in their sleep. I remember I thought back to that storyline. I was like, wait,
that man
did
ain't no fan of no old
did
Republic, man.
Ryan pull from some random ass Old Republic comics?
I don't know. I
Like
ain't gonna
I'm like, okay, okay. Look, I'm not saying it's good, and I'm not even mentioning that to excuse it. I'm just like, where I like people tell me Ryan's not a fan. I'm like, look, whether he's a fan or not, to me he sucks, and he should never do anything Star Wars related again. But
Preach.
regardless, it's like I have to ask myself, is he a fan? Like sometimes I really wonder that.
it's the same way you gotta ask with anyone who works on Star Wars. I mean, you look at the credentials. You go
Right.
look at interviews of Charmin Obey Chinoy. You can tell that ain't no Star Wars fan. Leslie Headland. I mean, she is a fan. Now, given people have a predisposition
Is
about her
she?
already, I
I
mean,
don't know. I'm skeptical. Maybe she is.
she's used some. I got to give her credit now. She didn't done a few good things on the Acolyte with that
She
one
made a
episode.
better Star Wars load than any sequel director.
I
All
can't
right.
lie.
Well,
I
you
can't,
know
I
what? You know
can't
what?
lie.
Look, as cringe as the Acolyte is, I don't think it's anywhere as bad as the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, and that's saying a lot. You look at JJ, who I don't care what that man say.
He should go back
Res-
to Star Trek. Honestly,
there's no way
He
you're a
did
Star
good with
Wars
Star
fan and
Trek.
you allowed what you allowed to pass in the Force Awakens. There's no way you
no,
let that
no,
slide.
no. Look, Eric. Here's JJ's brilliant, ingenious thought process. I like the comedy in the original trilogy. So you know what that means? What makes Star Wars work? Comedy. So that's why you have all these fucking jokes in this movie. That's why it feels like MCU humor because
Yeah,
JJ thought the secret sauce behind Star Wars success was
yeah.
comedy. I'm gonna amp up the comedy.
Now I'm gonna leave Evan with this one before he goes. I'm gonna leave Evan with this one. I do admit that as the sequels have gone along, I feel like Kylo is the only saving grace of those films.
Facts.
But but I ain't gonna lie, you're absolutely right when you talk about how they just it went down like for him after episode 7, like dude was so intimidating the whole movie, and then he took off his mask and that face was smooth as a baby's bottom. I'm talking about I'm talking about boy baby lotion rubbed on that thing. That boy
Looked
was
like a dang
fresh.
Calvin Klein model.
Boy fresh out the. You feel what I'm
Wait,
saying?
Jay, the crisscross face scar didn't scare you?
Look, I would have been fine with and look, this is no knock on Adam Driver because as he like I said, I think in episode 8 he's the saving grace. I think in episode 9 he's awesome. So don't and Kylo Ren is my favorite sequel trilogy character if I had to pick one. So don't get me wrong, but when you do that to that character and then you just have him lose in the fashion that he did against Ray in episode 7, I'm like, there's no way. Y'all are doing this on purpose. Y'all are humiliating people on purpose. Y'all are trying to trigger somebody on
I'm
purpose.
confused here. If Ray's supposed to have Kylo's abilities, like if she's supposed to have all his experience due to his dyad, why would he lose to her? Wouldn't it be a stalemate? Because they have the same abilities, same experience. It's like the more you think about these movies, the less sense they make.
The less sense, the less sense they make. But again, it's always going to be debated, and because it'll never make enough sense to where people will leave it alone. It's never gonna not make enough sense to where we're just not gonna come back to it and be like, why did y'all do like this is and again for sequel fans to argue it, I'm gonna just say look at Mark Hamill's interviews and leave me alone. That tells you all you need to know. Don't try to justify it with nothing. Just go look at Mark Hamill's interviews, and that's all you need. That's all. Like once he spoke on it and was like, "Hey, man,
Have a great night, Richard.
you too, Rich. Thanks for joining, man. Thanks for joining."
Richie Rich.
Um, once you just get to that, man, that's it.
Before I hop off, I'm gonna leave y'all with this.
Yes,
There's such thing as bad storytelling, objectively. I'm so tired of people saying, "Oh, there's no such thing as an objectively bad movie." No, horseradish.
Horse,
There's a there's
horseradish.
objectively bad movies. I know I'm using the same kind of cuss language as Joe Biden. I know.
Malarkey.
I've never I've never seen so much malarkey in a Star Wars films in my entire life. Star Wars is in a situation where the fact is that we have a situation where Luke Skywalker fights Gandalf. No, I'm just playing. Um,
You make me
I'm
want to do it.
Gandalf would stop
You,
Luke.
you
I
make me
mean,
want to
like
do a Trump version so bad.
Gandalf would
When,
stop Luke. The power scaling with Gandalf. He's literally an angel.
That's
when,
very true.
when I had Star Wars, Luke was fine. Everything was fine.
They don't make Star Wars this good in China.
You guys are
We're gonna build
awesome.
the Death Star, and the Jedi are gonna pay for it. Okay, it's gonna be a great Death Star. Thanks to all the Jedi, and it's gonna be fantastic. People look at me and they say, "Mr. Trump, how do you do it?" And I say, "I don't know. I'm just that good. I just am." But in all seriousness, if we can be serious after
Yes,
that,
yeah.
the legacy of Episode 8 for me is gonna be the movie that ruined a lot of Star Wars for me. Um, I don't care what defense sequel fans can come up with. I say I respect their opinions because I'm in the sense of you have a right to like what you want to like, and I can't stop it. But on the flip side of that, I will never be one of the ones who enjoy Episode 8, and I cannot understand how anybody could. I hear a lot of people say, "Well, I can understand what some people like," and I'm not one of those people. I don't get it. I do not understand if you enjoy episodes 4 through 6, which are my favorite of the trilogy. I am an OG fan. I grew up on the prequels, but once I saw the OGs, I fell in love and said, "This is just perfect. I love all of these." Are there corny elements of the OG trilogy? Yes. Are there over dramatic moments? Sure. However, for me, having Darth Vader, who I consider to be the pinnacle, and if you look at IMDb, very famous movie review website, number one villain of all time, Darth Vader. And there's a reason for that. He personifies evil. He personifies intimidation. When he's on the screen, it's always just this intense moment. It's unsettling. He's horrifying in many instances. Um, he's iconic. The sequel trilogy could not deliver an iconic villain, and all of the elements were there, and they failed. But above all else, as I close, I want to touch on Luke Skywalker before I sign off because I've given my thoughts on him a million times, And I'm going to say it one more time. So I need some Gatorade to hype me up for this. What they did to Luke Skywalker was unfreaking forgivable. I've gone on many rants about this because it's just that bad. You took the most optimistic Jedi in the galaxy and turned him into a miserable old hermit for no good reason. No good reason. He turned on Kylo for no good reason. It was a horrible decision, and you ruined Ryan Johnson. You, sir, ruined a childhood classic for many. There's a difference between doing something different and just being an edge lord. You know, there is nothing creative about being an edge lord and just doing something different for the sake of doing something different. That's just idiotic. Work with what works. They didn't do that, and now the legacy of Luke Skywalker is he turned on his nephew over a bad dream, and episode 8 is what we got. And it was horrific, and it damned Star Wars. It absolutely did. And I don't care what defense people can come up with for that. Luke Skywalker got trashed. Snoke, and I overheard some of what Lucas Knight was saying about Snoke. Ryan Johnson didn't care for Snoke. Well, sir, that makes you, Ryan Johnson, an idiot for not caring about the main antagonist in your film. Like, that would be like Christopher Nolan saying, well, I just wasn't very focused on Joker in The Dark Knight. Like, how freaking stupid do you have to be? Like, how, like, villains make, and I don't care what anyone says, show me an all time great action movie, superhero movie, or any kind of movie, action, superhero, Star Wars, that didn't have an all time great villain to go along with it. It's absolutely critical. The Dark Knight, uh, Inglorious Bastards, Django Unchained, Episode 5. What do these movies have in common? Great villains. Heath Ledger's Joker, Colonel Hans Landa, Calvin Candy, Darth Vader, Heath Ledger Joker. Great villains. Episode 8, you could have saved us so much heartache. We could have overlooked Rose. We could have overlooked Holdo. We could overlook the pettiness. But you gave us a horrible Luke Skywalker. You gave us a horrible villain. You gave us a horrible climax. You gave us a horrible build up. So bad that J.J. Abrams was left with an impossible task of making some sense of the fallout of episode 8 and episode 9. Whenever Eric and I saw episode 9 in theaters, I'll go ahead and say Eric didn't care for it. He was like, yo, Evan, you told me this was good. This wasn't that good. And I told Eric when we saw it, I was like, bro, in comparison to what we saw in episode 8,
Yeah,
this was as good as this movie could have possibly been.
I realized that in retrospect, that was as good as it was going to get.
Yeah, was it a great Star Wars movie? No. I
No.
still have Force Awakens ahead of it. Just because, and we can talk about that another day.
Yeah.
But as I sign off, I'm leaving y'all with this. Episode 8 is forever a 2 out of 10 for me. It's a horrific movie. I have nothing good to say about it outside of the visuals. Is where the 2 comes from. Outside of that, I think it's a horrific movie. Horrible storytelling, horrible character development, and a horrible climax. But I'm going to sign off. You boys have a great rest of your pod.
Have a great day,
You
Evan.
too, bro. See ya.
Later, man.
Knight, anything to add to that as we go into the midnight hour?
I just feel bad for Evan. I mean, man,
Yeah.
they really let him down.
No, man, you have to because I mean, it's just you can't you can't take back once you do something like that. You just and I know a lot of fans will talk about how oh, y'all are just on the internet complaining, y'all need to get over it, blah. It's not that. It's just that we're passionate about Star Wars and we love it as so many others do. And it's always going to be a point of controversy.
No, Eric, you need to show them some. You need to be mean with them. It's like,
No, no,
look, we're complaining, and guess what? You guys are complaining about us complaining. Like, well,
I,
what are we doing
I,
right now?
I can't be that way because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I'm not the one that has to live with that. I'm not going to
Okay.
be the one that has to live with ruining a character for so many millions of people.
Yeah.
I'm not the one that has to live that way. I feel like, and look, I'm in the process of writing some stories because I'm writing my book. I'm writing my own book that I'm starting with my own story and characters that I've been wanting to do for a long time. But as I
Mm-hmm.
do like warm up writing, I had this idea yesterday. I'm like, let me like write a Star Wars story. Like, let me write my version of, TLJ or whatever. And I am writing some like so-called fan fictions. But as I wrote,
Whatever it is, it's better than what we saw. I already know.
I believe it. Thank you. But as I'm writing it, I'm realizing I'm like just how much weight and responsibility this is. You know what I'm saying? Like I would have consulted with George. I would have just got the pulse of the fandom. You know what I'm saying? To see what was really going on. Not saying I would try to please everybody, but I would at least try to meet in some middle ground where I wouldn't hurt, especially making the choice as drastic as that with Luke Skywalker. I think Mark would have been the first person I would have talked to. I would have been
Eric, here's what you do. You listen to George, you follow his direction, and every other idea and option and suggestion about what fans want and what Mark, prefers and stuff, you suggest to George in the process of making it. That would have been smarter, honestly, man.
anything better than what Ryan did. And so
Yeah.
and the
You know he
position
only
that it
wrote
put
one
us in.
draft, right? Look. I don't know if you've ever like gone to film school or any of that, but in film school we were taught,
No.
as a filmmaker myself, in film school we were taught something: never write just one draft. Always write at least two or three drafts when you're working on something. Ryan had one draft for The Last Jedi, and in his mind, it was so perfect he chose not to write anymore. And when asked about it, when in interviews and stuff, he said himself, "No, I like what I did. I have no regrets. I don't think there's anything wrong." It's like he only wrote one draft for this movie. Like all the signs are clear as to why this movie sucks.
Yeah. That's that's just that shows you what it is right there, man. That shows you what it is right there. So, I mean, I feel you, bro. But man, this was a great podcast tonight, man. This was a great after hours.
Yeah, man. I gotta go get some. I gotta go like take care of some stuff. But it was awesome coming on.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I can't wait to do it again, bro. Cannot wait.
You want to go over some DC stuff? Like I love talking about stars with you guys. You guys want to go over some DC trivia later? Like the next
Absolutely.
time we do it? Yeah,
Absolutely. We'll make it happen.
yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd love to tell Evan some things about Batman and the Dark Knight and Joker in particular, and I'd like to talk to you about them too. I don't know. Have you read any DC or Marvel comics, or do you just
I
watch?
have. I
Oh,
have.
cool. Yeah. It'd be great
Yeah.
if we could go over that because, like, look, man, as much as I like talking about how Disney Star Wars has fallen, and I do like talking about it sometimes, I feel like we need to balance it out, make ourselves more happy, and we should
Oh,
talk about.
we will
Yeah,
definitely do that. We will definitely do that.
yeah, exactly. Oh, apparently Sifdan said something.
Let's see. Sit down. I feel the same way when I write my Transformers Prime TV show fan fiction. My audience wants more as well. I'm under the same criticism. Yeah.
Sifdan, send me a link, man. Like all of you, just
Let
send
it.
me your
Yeah.
fanfics.
DM that. We need to read that. I need that.
Yeah,
Inject it in my veins. We need that.
please. Yeah.
We need that. Man. But man. Yeah. Great show tonight, man. But yeah, we'll definitely be on again. Uh let's do it again tomorrow night, probably. Let's do it
All
again
right.
tomorrow night. Let's make it
Awesome.
happen.
Yeah, I'll see if I can be there.
All right then, let's make it happen. But thanks for being on, man. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Jay. All right, later, guys. Later,
Later,
Jay. You guys
broskies.
all have a good night. All
Absolutely.
of
You
you.
too, man. You too.
You too.
And with that, thank you guys for tuning in to the After Hours podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe. thank all you guys for tuning in on tonight. It's been an awesome conversation. This will be available everywhere you listen to your podcast, Spotify, wherever Spotify podcasters. It will be available and the link will be posted. So we will catch you guys later, and you guys have a blessed night. Peace.